luckiest woman in the whole world today is probably Roseanne, because she decided not to have the clothing line.
Kathy Lee Gifford, American icon, has a clothing line, and oh my God, she's exploiting workers at Honduras.
I didn't need a reason to hate Kathy Lee Gifford. I was just happy to get one.
These same clothes that Kathy Lee sells in Walmart stores may have been made by children in Honduras sweatshops.
Kathy Lee Gifford is like a train wreck. You can't wait to see what she's going to say or do.
Kids in gutters, kids found in dumpsters. And we can't do anything about it in New York City, it seems like. But I'm supposed to be personally responsible for everything that happens around the world.
She never stopped apologizing for that. Boy, she could just blah, 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 blah.
I think she should have considered therapy. Then she could have handled going over the edge all of it.
Yes, there are Honduran child midgets making Kathy Lee Gifford dungarees. It is not her fault.
Walmart released a statement. Quote, "It's ludicrous to think that Walmart or Kathy Lee have anything to do with child labor abuse."
Oh, you do. You do.
Kids were working from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes they told us we worked all night to 5 o'clock in the morning on the Kathy Lee pants.
I don't think Kathy Gifford knew anything except how to make ugly clothes.
Anyone who would buy Kathy Lee Gifford's clothes in the first place should be forced to go work in a Honduran sweatshop. It's a perfect defense if your clothes are made in a sweatshop, though. You know, if somebody says, this fits weird, you know, what do you want? They're 8. They're 8 years old. You want it to fit?
Viva the sweatshops.
So what happened was, I don't know if you remember the guy with the beard was being interviewed and was talking about the kids who were working overtime. He's the one who brought the allegations forward, and so it totally took her by surprise. And there's a couple of videos of her on the Live with Regis and Kathy Lee show of her just breaking down and going into public battle with this guy. It turns out that his allegations were true. She basically said, you know, and heard it is that, you know, how much responsibility are we supposed to take here in New York when this is on the other side of the world? And that's the moment when a company, a brand, a celebrity's image and its supply chain stopped being something that you could just offshore and reached into the living rooms of America. That's when consumers started to switch their expectations of companies, that you do now have a responsibility for what happens in your supply chain. And it was a combination of these two that made it so. Interestingly, she said, you know, how am I supposed to control what happens on the other side of the world when I'm here in New York? Well, the gentleman brought forward a couple of workers who hadn't been paid in a couple of weeks from a sweatshop in New York City as well. And they testified before Congress and everything. So it was even a lot closer than she thought. So we talked about this before, in kind of creating a definition of corporate responsibility. Often when I talk to people, they think this, that corporate responsibility or sustainability is philanthropy. And if there's kind of one image I want you to take away from today, it's this one. That yes, philanthropy is a part of a corporate responsibility or sustainability strategy. It can be a part of it, but it's not the only aspect of it. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a second, but I kind of define sustainability as a company managing and improving the social and environmental impacts of its business operations, and doing so in a way that creates social value and business value. And I think a good way to kind of think about this is actually an analogy that has some Chicago roots. So this is the USS Eastland, which was chartered by the Western Electric Company and was docked right between LaSalle Street and Clark Street along what is now Wacker Drive. And so as Western Electric Company, they loaded it with several thousand passengers. They were going to go across Lake Michigan for a company picnic. It was primarily Czech immigrants that were working in the Western Electric factory in Cicero. And then this happened. The ship was overloaded with both passengers as well as lifeboats. The ballast was taken out and then put back in, and then taken out and put back in to no avail. And of the 2,500 passengers, 844 died. So I bring this up because I think it's actually an important analogy. Because the reason why it was overloaded with lifeboats was because of the Titanic. The Titanic had just happened a couple of years before, and because of it, the U.S. government passed a law signed by Woodrow Wilson that every cruise ship had to have enough lifeboats on it for every passenger on it. Makes sense. But ships at that time weren't designed to carry that heavy load. In particular because the lifeboats were made of wood, they were even heavier. And the Eastland was just a very poorly designed ship. It was built for speed, it was built to get across, carry as many people as it can to get across a body of water as quickly as you can. And so, in a way, this is kind of essentially what business is. American business is thinking about the next quarter profits, the next quarter profits, the next quarter profits. Get there as quick as you can, at all expenses. Now, what happens is as society lays more and more expectations on you as a company, if you aren't designing your ship, if you aren't designing your business well enough, then you can kind of get into a little bit of hot water. So we see this with BP when they started touting that they're this new green energy company, but they forgot about health and safety, and so that's when the Loyola platform happened. We see it now with Apple. Now they have the most amazing products many of us have ever known. They're now being investigated by a number of news media outlets for Foxconn, their supplier in China, in Shenzhen province, for having such harsh working conditions that people are committing suicide. And the solution that Foxconn comes up with is to put nets around the building to prevent people from committing suicide. So if you're not paying attention to your whole supply chain, you're going to be setting yourself up for disaster. We haven't really seen it happen with Apple yet, but I think when Apple's being put onto CBS Sunday Morning, the New York Times, and This American Life about supply chain, I think it's only a matter of time before there's some buildup of pressure, some consumer pressure. So looking at corporate responsibility kind of defines these platform strategies of the main components of a sustainability strategy. And so it ranges from everything from your diversity initiatives to your volunteer programs, your environmental impact, managing your environmental impact, looking at your procurement policies. All of these things make up a sustainability program or strategy. But fundamentally, and there are other things we could put up there on this list, but these are the main ones. But fundamentally, the question to ask yourself is how do you create business value out of social value? And how does business value and social value interrelate? And so I've created kind of this social value map, where at the bottom is where we have all the different platforms that make up the sustainability strategy, which all then kind of connect into how you're engaging these strategies. So are you working with non-governmental organizations? Are you working with your consumers, with your employees, with opinion leaders and customers? Essentially, are you using these strategies to create and change social value, a positive difference in society or the environment? And if you're able to do so, if you're engaging these people correctly, you start to see an emotional change in pride and reputation and exposure of your brands, the tonality of media relations, the loyalty and trust of employees and consumers. And once you start to turn these different emotional changes into something positive, if they are negative, or just increase something that's already positive, that's when you start to see some decision-making changes. You see this on both the consumer end and on the customer end. So the typical marketing outlook is on attitude, awareness, and behavior. You've got to change someone's awareness of your company or your brand first, and then change their attitude, and then that will eventually change into their purchasing behaviors. And in fact, that's where you create drivers of business. So customer acquisition, customer retention, employment, recruitment, and retention,